Now it's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's start with Democrat Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, who really should feature more heavily in this segment because she is a certifiable lefty losing it, incapable of rationality. She was asked to appear on News Nation to speak about jihadism and the rise of anti-Semitism in America. It did not go well.
What is the bigger threat to America right now, American values, American life? Islamophobia or jihad?
I think we have to focus, quite frankly, on, if we're worried about the threat to American values, on the person who's in the White House. I mean, we have a president.
Oh, come on. Really?
No,
is that where we're going? Come on.
Yeah, I'm going there because we have a president who has completely undermined our democracy to divide instead of unite us. The responsibility of
I have to say, Congressman, you know how much I admire you, and I always appreciate being willing to come on and discuss things. But we booked you to talk about anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in America, so.
Well, that was a mistake, wasn't it? These sad Democrats are one-trick ponies. It's all about bashing Trump in the most hysterical fashion imaginable. Let's go to church in Canada. I wonder what holy sermons will be treated to here. What wise words of wisdom from church leaders.
Oh boy, what a treat to be here this morning, as I am most Sunday mornings. And I'm so excited I get to share this part of me too. Because let me tell you you can keep going. Oh boy.
Okay, let's now watch loopy lefty writer Wajat Ali, who features in the New York Times occasionally. Well, he makes an absolute clown of himself in this exchange with fitness guru Jillian Michaels.
Jillian, you are you by your own admission. You by your own admission are a white nationalist. You by your own admission, that's what you are, a white nationalist. You admitted it.
I'm a white nationalist. You know I'm Arab, right?
The number
I'm
one
Syrian and Lebanese and Turkish.
Now, what we've learned about the left in recent years is they are angry, hysterical, and often deeply unpleasant. Democrat operative James Carville manages the trifecta here when he claims Donald Trump has no humanity, followed by this.
The basic elements of humanity. And I'm not sure he's not getting worse. It's not up to me because, frankly, I wouldn't piss down his goddamn throat if his heart was on fire. But
incredible. Now to musician Bob Vylan, who is so full of hate, so full of bile that he said this about Charlie Kirk on stage.
I want to dedicate this next one to an absolute piece of a human being. The pronouns was, were. Because if you touch, you will get banned. Rest in Charlie Kirk, you piece of
Bob is a vile, attention-seeking, gutter-dwelling loser. I think the lesson here is don't be like Bob. Let's have a look at the sterling work of Swedish doomsday wench Greta Thunberg, who has gone effortlessly from global warming hysteric to anti-Israel activist to this.
All across Europe, factories are shutting down and hundreds of thousands of workers are losing their jobs. But what happens if we don't accept that? What happens if we fight back? Our so-called leaders are never going to do the changes needed to safeguard our future. It is up to us, especially the workers of this world, to be the solution of a problem created by this system.
Joining me now is Centre of the American Experiment president and founder and writer at the popular Powerline blog, John Hinderaker. John, there you go. Greta, who's never had a real job, is now a champion of workers. I wonder why those factories in Europe are closing down. Could it be the self-inflicted energy crisis that many European leaders inflicted on their country at the behest of global warming hysterics, just like Greta?
Yeah, Rita, Greta Thunberg must be one of the least self-aware people in the world. Workers of the world unite, she says. But of course, the reason why factories have shut down all across Europe is because green energy laws that have been promoted by people like Greta Thunberg have driven up the cost of electricity and made it impossible for those factories to compete internationally. So Thunberg herself is one of the causes of the problem that she is decrying.
Oh, absolutely. The cost of energy, the deindustrialization of some countries in the West, it's all because of these green policies. And now they're champions of workers. Now let's go to the US, and there are some on the right calling for President Trump to sack his chief of staff after her ill-advised, some would say idiotic, decision to speak to Vanity Fair. She didn't just speak to them, she gave them long-term access, John. How do you see this issue?
Rita, this was unbelievably stupid. Susie Wiles sat for 11 interviews with Vanity Fair over the past year. There's no more vicious, anti-conservative, anti-Trump outlet than Vanity Fair. I don't get it. Did Susie Wiles just fall off a turnip truck? I mean, what did she think Vanity Fair was going to do with those hours of interview tape? Devoted an entire issue, 150 pages of verbatim transcript of Susie Wiles? No, of course not. Obviously, they were going to pluck out the sentences they could use to make Donald Trump look bad. Anybody could have foreseen that, and I find it just inexplicable that Susie Wiles would do something this foolish.
It is just so profoundly foolish. She's not a naive woman, so how she came to make this decision 11 times is beyond me. Let's have a look at a couple of the stories and the angles that Vanity Fair took. Susie Wiles seemed to compare teetotaler Donald Trump to an alcoholic. That one got plenty of headlines, John. She claimed that Vice President J.D. Vance has been a conspiracy theorist for a decade, and his conversion to the MAGA cause may have been political, sort of political, she said. And she also said that for Donald Trump, the narco boat strikes are all about removing Nicolas Maduro from power. Is any of that helpful to the Trump administration?
I don't see how it can be, Rita. I mean, this alcoholic personality thinking Trump, by the way, is supporting Susie Wiles, sticking up for, and he said, yes, it's true. I do have kind of an alcoholic personality. Of course, to me, that makes no sense. An alcoholic personality is one that, you drink too much, and Trump hasn't had a drink in decades. So, what was she talking about? I have no idea. But obviously, these are sentences plucked out of hours of interviews with the intention of making Trump and his administration look bad, exactly as anybody should have expected.
Now, today, President Trump spoke about the naval blockade of sanctioned oil vessels leaving and heading to Venezuela.
Just a blockade. We're not going to let anybody going through that shouldn't be going through. You remember they took all of our energy rights. They took all of our oil from not that long ago, and we want it back. But they took it. They illegally took it.
John, tell me about the escalation of this conflict.
Well, we have an aircraft carrier strike force stationed in the Caribbean now off the Venezuelan coast. That there's a lot of ships. That's not just one ship. That's a whole bunch of ships, whole bunch of planes, whole bunch of personnel. You can't just leave them sitting there indefinitely. Sooner or later, they have to either do something or go home. And so President Trump is trying to ratchet up the pressure on Maduro to try to drive him out of office without armed conflict. The last thing he wants to do is invade Venezuela. That's not going to happen. But sanctions do not have much of a track record at forcing dictators out of office. It rarely, if ever, happens. And it's not clear to me that there's any pressure that our administration can bring to bear that's actually going to drive Maduro out.
Now, John, Democrat Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has hit out at the president again over his comments about Somalian migrants, particularly in Minnesota. She had this to say on CNN.
We are doctors, we are teachers, we are entrepreneurs, and we are elected representatives of our state. And so these vile comments and this sort of creepy obsession that he has on me and Somali Americans really is dangerous, and it's beneath the office of the presidency.
John, the White House social media team shared that clip. They posted it along with a comment about 80% of Somali immigrant households receiving some form of welfare. Tell me about this ongoing war of words between Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, and the Trump administration.
Well, it's unbelievable, Rita. As you know, the Somalis in Minnesota, there are not many doctors, but there's a lot of fraudsters. You know, they've stolen billions of dollars in taxpayer money. It's turned into an industry here. The Trump administration has finally caught on to it. They're talking about it. The Walz administration is trying to defend itself, and Ilhan Omar is trying to personalize it, make it about her and the president. Tim Walz says we don't have enough Somalis in Minnesota. He wants more, bring in more Somalis. And of course, they're loyal Democratic Party voters. That's why he wants more Somalis. So we'll see where this all goes. These Somalis, the ones that have been prosecuted for fraud, are overwhelmingly American citizens. And they have been really assiduous. The Democratic Party has been really assiduous about getting them naturalized as citizens, and they become a very powerful voting bloc here in Minnesota. And so it's not really a situation of illegal immigration. That's really not the problem when you talk about this community.
Is the unprecedented fraud we've seen in Minnesota putting any pressure on Governor Tim Walz?
Oh, sure it is. My organization polled this in September, and 56% of Minnesotans in our poll said Walz hadn't done enough about fraud. 61% in the suburbs, which are the battleground areas in our state, say that Tim Walz has not done enough about fraud. It is going to be a huge issue in the November election. Tim Walz is trying to get a third term, which is always hard to do. And the Republicans obviously are going to be pounding away on this issue of fraud.
Now, there's been a high-profile resignation today. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino is going to be stepping down. How do you think that's going to be viewed? He appears to be leaving on good terms.
Yeah, I think fundamentally, Rita, celebrity appointments often don't turn out too well. The deputy director of the FBI historically has been a guy who administers the agency behind the scenes, really more of a bureaucrat administrator. And of course, that's not Dan Bongino. He's a flamboyant podcaster. And so he's going to go back to his podcast. And I think, frankly, he's probably better suited to that role than to being the deputy director of the FBI.
It'll be fascinating to see how that will work with that podcast. I mean, he always had incredible sources given his background, but now that he's been the deputy director of the FBI, can you just imagine the news he'll be breaking? Now, President Donald Trump has expanded the US travel ban list. He's barred 5 additional countries, as well as people travelling on Palestinian Authority-issued documents. They won't be allowed into the US. The list of banned countries or countries that have got a full or at least some sort of partial ban stands at 39, John. That is an extensive list.
Well, it's a huge list. It's probably too big a list. Under our Constitution and our laws, the president has got a lot of authority over immigration. He can, by order, suspend all immigration if he wants to, or he can suspend any part of it that he may want to. He's chosen to do that now, but this is not going to be permanent. At some point, immigration from some of these countries or travel from some of these countries is going to resume. But what I hope Trump does is just stop this practice of importing millions of people from hostile third world countries, especially in the Middle East and Africa, into our nation. We don't need them. They're in many cases hostile to our country and to our culture. And I hope that he will simply cut off that stream of immigration.
Well, you look at that list of countries, and there are overwhelmingly African countries in the Middle East. So they are on that list. Now, I do have some good news for you, John. Axios has reported earlier this week that Kamala Harris is running again. The former vice president has made it clear to potential 2028 rivals that she's working to keep another White House campaign viable. What are her chances, John?
Well, her chances are slim and none, Rita. She's not going to be the Democrats' nominee in 2028. I mean, she was an embarrassment in 2024. I think, Rita, that the reason why she's doing this is not because she's serious about trying to get elected president in 2028, but oftentimes politicians are in this situation where they have to at least tease the idea that they're going to be running for president so that they stay relevant. She wants to be a guest on The View. You know, she wants to go on, she wants to get paid $100,000 to give a 30-minute speech and so forth. And so she's got to stay relevant. How do you stay relevant? By putting it out there that you're running for president.
Well, she's had already 2 trips to Australia. First one was speaking at some sort of a real estate conference on the Gold Coast. And I think she's going to be back again. So I don't know why we are being targeted by Kamala Harris. Someone's writing her checks in Australia. I don't know who. Before you go, we played last night some really terrible footage, ugly, hate-filled footage of an attack against a lovely lady working at Target, just going about her business, trying to do her job when she's set upon by this foul-mouthed demon Karen who berates her for wearing a Charlie Kirk shirt. Now, there's been a development in this story, but let's just remind the audience about the encounter.
You're stupid? No. Why the you wear that? You're at work at Target. That's not a Target shirt. It's not a plain red shirt. You support a racist. No, the opinion is he's a racist and you support him.
That's your opinion, ma'am.
And you should not be allowed to wear that. This is going to be taken above your head. That's insane.
Yep, like a good Karen trying to get that poor woman sacked. That's just part of the tirade that woman was subjected to from the crazy Karen. She's the one who posted it. The Karen is the one who thought she looked good in that video. She posted it expecting to get applause. Instead, that woman, who's believed to work at the Enloe Health Medical Center in Northern California, is now being investigated by her workplace, who say they are deeply concerned about the tenor of the post, really. We ask for patience and calm as we conduct our own internal investigation of this matter. I don't know how much of an investigation they need, John. The video was pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I think we just investigated a moment ago, Rita. I think that's pretty much all you need to know. But, you know, this woman displayed liberal privilege. Liberals think they can do this. They think they can just walk up to somebody in a store and start swearing at her, attacking her, calling Charlie Kirk a racist, suggesting she's going to go to this woman's manager and try to get her fired. Liberals think they can do this kind of thing because they live in a bubble. And the fact that the woman who attacked this poor Target employee went and posted the video, she was proud of it. You know, her friends undoubtedly think, oh, yeah, that was great. Way to go. And this is what I call liberal privilege. They actually think they can take these kinds of liberties.
They do. It's called the awful phenomenon. I think it's quite prevalent amongst women, sadly, affluent white female leftists. And this is how they behave. It is just vile, but some good news for that Target worker. Give, Send, Go, a Christian crowdfunding website, has identified her. Her name is Jeannie, and they've already raised over $120,000 for her. And they said, we're hoping to raise enough money so that she can afford a much-needed vacation, a time for her to relax, recharge, and just forget about the ugliness. Yes, and forget about the demonic Karens of this world. John Hinderaker, Merry Christmas to you. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Now, here is some beautiful imagery from First Lady Melania Trump's upcoming film. This looks incredible. Sorry, lefties, but I think it's going to be a hit.
Here we go again.
You can come in. Good morning.
His legacy will be that of peacemaker.
Peacemaker under the fire.
Beautiful. Together with like-minded leaders, we have a voice. Is it safe?
It is safe.
Everyone wants to know. So here it is. Hi, Mr. President. Congratulations.
Did you watch it?
I did not. Yeah, I will see it on the news.
Joining me now is celebrity and royal commentator Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, Baron Trump is going to be making his big screen debut in this upcoming documentary. And I've got to say, that trailer, it looks fantastic. And I love that iconic moment, the exchange between the president and the first lady. And he asks her, did you watch it? And she says, I did not. I'll watch it on the news.
She's like, I had other things to do. I'm a very busy first lady. She looks so happy in this trailer. She looks confident. She looks like she's having fun. You know, in public, we see her, she's very guarded and she is very stoic. And I admire that, but it is so interesting to see this different side of her. You know, she doesn't need Anna Wintour. She's doing her own thing and she's setting the record straight. And I really think that she might change a lot of hearts and minds with this movie.
Well, there is a great deal of fascination when it comes to Melania, maybe because she is guarded and stoic and there's an air of mystery around her. And there's certainly great fascination too with Baron Trump. So those two factors, I think, are going to make this a bit of a hit.
I completely agree. Baron has become a heartthrob. There are multiple social media accounts dedicated to him these days, run by his fans. And so this is going to hit the spot for those young Trumpers.
Now, Netflix has reportedly cancelled its gay military series called Boots after Pentagon labelled it woke garbage. Kinsey, the series was set to follow the story of Cameron Cope, a gay teen from Louisiana who is bullied and somehow finds purpose in the military.
Yeah, and apparently Cameron's going to have to find a new purpose elsewhere because Netflix's exclusivity is so strict that they can't shop this show anywhere else. And while the Pentagon did call it woke garbage, it was actually kind of popular. I mean, it had way more eyeballs than with Love Meghan. So there are a lot of disappointed fans. I just think that maybe this is, you know, how big could they grow the base? Where could they go with this story? I do think that Netflix realized that they were potentially limited with the content.
Rap superstar Nicki Minaj has blasted California Governor Gavin Newsom in a series of posts on X. She wrote, "Imagine being the guy running on wanting to see trans kids. Haha, not even a trans adult would run on that. Normal adults wake up and think they want to see healthy, safe, happy kids." Kinsey, Nicki Minaj is becoming more and more outspoken. She seems to be very based. I've got to say, I did admire her coming out and speaking up for the plight of persecuted Christians in places like Nigeria. I thought that was really a brave stand, and she gave a voice to people who don't get the media coverage that they deserve.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the fact that she's going after Gavin Newsom. You know, I don't like Gavin Newsom very much, and he's my governor. He has flip-flopped on this issue too. Remember when he was sitting in front of Charlie Kirk, he was saying we should, you know, trans kids shouldn't compete with other children in sports. And then, you know, now he's taking this stronger stance about trans children. And I'm wondering if it's because I believe he has a godchild or he has a family member that we recently found out was trans. And I don't know if it's because of that exposure that he's flip-flopped flip-flopping on this issue. But good on Nicki Minaj for holding him accountable and, just saying like, what are you doing? I'm sure that his bizarre social media team will have a clapback soon. The countdown is on, but it just shows his hypocrisy when all he does is go after Donald Trump for the way that he conducts himself on social media.
I can't believe that social media strategy is still happening. I thought somebody with a brain within his team would say, this is a disaster, let's pull back now. Let's just try to memory hold this craziness. But no, they're persevering. Meghan Markle, let's talk about her. Her team allegedly sent unnecessarily aggressive messages to a journalist for being by Thomas Markle's hospital bedside. Daily Mail reporter Caroline Graham said she became good friends with Thomas after an interview back in 2018. And Kinsey, Meghan has only sent a letter to her father after his amputation surgery. But Caroline, who has been by his bedside through all this, said she would walk away from their friendship if it meant he could reconcile with his daughter.
Well, you know what? Meghan's already walked away because what we found out is while Meghan's father sat in a hospital bed, after losing a limb, Meghan had a parade of attorneys and embassy employees come through his hospital room with legal documents, some videotaping him for Meghan saying, oh, we have to send this to Meghan. We have to show her, we have to show us getting this in your hand and send it off to Meghan, and for Meghan to waste a ton of resources, not to check on her father or show sympathy, but according to the Times, we're finding out that Meghan formally breaks up with her father in this letter and reprimands him for his relationship with the media pot meat kettle. So really, I think we're wrapping up 2025 like Merry Christmas from the worst daughter ever.
And we had all that PR spin in the last week or so about how Meghan is desperately trying to find her father, find what hospital he's in, to get this letter to him. So it was all presented as Meghan extending an olive branch, but it doesn't seem to be that at all. Quite the opposite. Michelle Obama, she's facing a backlash after appearing on Jimmy Kimmel's program just hours after her friend Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle were found dead in their home. On the program, Kinsey, she revealed that she and Barack were meant to have dinner with a couple on Sunday, only to discover they had been murdered in their own home.
Allegedly by their son. Can you imagine going and sitting on Johnny Carson and yucking it up with a comedian and talking about your murdered friend? This is such vulgar behavior. I mean, I thought we'd seen the worst from Michelle Obama. Buckle up. 2025's not over. If I had plans with murdered friends, I'm not going on Jimmy Kimmel the next day to laugh and to talk about it. Who is advising this woman? If you look up the pictures of her on that program, she's laughing, she's smiling. She should have canceled or postponed. But, making the murder about herself, that's absolutely vile. Oh, we had plans. Oh, they didn't show up. I wonder why. A knife to the throat, Michelle Obama.
And incredibly, despite not just showing up, because that in itself just shows such poor judgment and self-obsession, but she then had a go at President Trump for the way he reacted, the tweet he sent. And you're supposed to be a close friend. And like you said, you're on a comedy program, a late night comedy program, and you've got the nerve to have a go at the president's response.
I know it's just like the wrong place, wrong time. The tone shouldn't have been there at all. I mean, she should not have been there at all. She's there promoting what? Herself. I just was so disgusted by this. And we always see this when celebrities die. Everybody popping up out of nowhere with their old photos that haven't talked to them in forever and all their long stories about them on Instagram. But this is a whole other level of narcissism.
Narcissism is the word. That was the word I was searching for. Now, Amy Schumer's former husband, Chris Fisher, has had his say on their high-profile divorce. Insiders told the Daily Mail he feels lost and is trying to come to terms with the fact their 7-year marriage is irretrievably broken. The insider said, of course, everyone eventually moves on from heartache and Chris will too, but it is going to take him some time as Amy is such an important part of his life. Kinsey, are we going to see tell-all interviews here and this couple airing their dirty laundry? Because it seems to be going that way.
Well, based on all of Amy's pictures on Instagram, after deleting all of the chunky photos, God love a chunky girl, I am one. She deletes all of her chunky photos
You are
on
not.
Thank you. She deletes all of her chunky photos on Instagram and starts uploading all of her Ozempic pictures down a dirty carpet, a dirty staircase. I think she loves attention. I think she'll want to put it out there that she's single, looking to mingle. So I absolutely can see her sitting down and doing a tell-all because it will garner her attention that she wants.
Are we blaming Ozempic for this split?
Absolutely. Everyone. Yeah. Hollywood is blaming Ozempic for this split. She's lost a ton of weight. She's feeling good about herself. And she says she wants to get back in front of a camera and she wants to get back to work. And they're saying that her focus now is her career and less on her family. And that's why this relationship deteriorated.
Before you go, Kinsey, Marjorie Taylor Greene and her boyfriend have announced their engagement, and an expert jeweler has revealed that the ring that we can see is worth $60,000 to $70,000 US based on its complex structure. Not bad.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions here, Rita. Her fiance is a YouTuber. I just want to know his credit score and how he can afford that ring. Okay. Like, how can he afford that ring based on what we know his job is? I'm impressed, to say the least.
60 to 70,000 US, that's over 100,000 Australian. That is an impressive ring. They say you should be spending a month's salary, or is it 3 months' salary on the wedding ring? So you can kind of work out his salary if he's stuck to that formula. Kinsey Schofield, thank you so much for your time tonight.